Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we attempt to find the best game within a really specific category. For example, this week we're looking for the best pirate game that isn't Black Flag. Inspired, of course, by the recent release of Skull and Bones, a Black Flag spin-off that has been in development for over a decade and fails to contain any of Black Flag's features, such as being able to get off the ship or board other ships or do any piratey stuff whatsoever beyond shooting cannons. What a show. I'm sorry, right? Joined by James Bilcliffe, Connor Macker, and Mark Warren. Before we get into our picks for this, Skull and Bones, they took that long to make that? It's basically a mobile game?
It might be, in its essence, the best pirate game of all time, because it does feel like Ubisoft has kind of just robbed the country of, the Philippines?
It couldn't be good, because if it was good, it would normalize games being in development for an actual century.
Or maybe they've just had to rush it out because they've got tax breaks or something. I don't know. That's pure speculation on my part.
Government agents banging on the doors we've given you so much money.
Excuse me, you've had $10 billion in subsidies at this point.
Where's the game?
I'm gobsmacked because they made an Assassin's Creed pirate game on mobile as a sort of tie-in to Black Flag, where you just kind of go about on a ship, shooting other ships, doing a bit of trading, and it was all in menus, and you don't get off the ship at any point, and it's all sort of the exploration stuff is implied. And I'm like, that was a mobile game that you made 100 years ago. If that's quadruple A, then we're f***ed, right?
There is one good thing about Skull and Bones, though. That it did gift us that incredible, I don't even know what to call it, play along, let's play with Michelle Rodriguez. Have we seen this?
Yes.
Where she's just serving the most uncle playing with the children at Super Bowl party energy. Oh, I have to steer at the same time? Sort of thing. Oh, wow. I enjoyed every second of that.
You know it's bad when you can't get Vin Diesel. Not even Vin Diesel said no.
Skull and Bones is just such a baffling prospect, but they've pushed it out now, so hopefully everyone can move on. But we're not going to move on from the pirate game, because there's actually quite a lot of pirate games out there. Some big ones, some small ones, some that people might not initially think of as pirate games, but definitely have pirate elements. So I think everyone's aware of this now, but just to say, we've changed the show slightly. This is an extended version where I get a pick right at the end and everyone gets to pick it apart, just because, I kind of deserve that comeuppance after spending over a year poo-pooing everyone else's picks. But that will be part of an extended version of the show that will become the paid version, but for now we're just giving it to everyone because it's the drug dealer tactic, innit? Right, so firstly, because he had to go last on the last one we recorded, James, I want to hear from you about what is your favourite pirate game, or what is the best pirate game apart from Black Flag?
Well, so I've been having what can only be described as an existential crisis.
You can't have Rogue either.
When the podcast first started, I found a lot of really good success by being a bit fun with the topics, being a bit cheeky and innovative with choosing a game that was a little bit different, something that played with the spirit of what you were asking. And I found a lot of success with that. And then I think you sort of got wise to that across the years now. And it just started working less and less. And
got wise?
Well, yeah. And then I had to try something different. And then I kind of entered my unassailably really good games era, where it's you can't argue with any of these. These are the best games every single time. And recently that just hasn't been working. I've just not been seeing the results of the hard work that I've been putting in, copying the trends and doing what's really best practice. But that just didn't seem to work too. So I've been feeling a little bit stuck. And that little diatribe is completely about this podcast specifically, and not about games media in 2024. But I've decided to go back to basics and really swing for the fences with a game that I think is undeniably completely evocative of the spirit of piracy, which boils down to group of people going around and using their superior force, might, and wit to just take your shit. That's what being a pirate is. Sailing the high seas, going around, taking stuff that isn't yours and making it yours through nothing else than grit, determination, and friendship. And I think when you think about that concept, the game that jumps out to me is Fortnite Battle Royale.
What?
Because if you think about it, you're with your little squad of people, you're going around, you're going around this world, you're looking for weak little lambs to prey on. They've been opening some treasure chests. They've got some nice weapons. They've got some purple ones. Maybe they've got some gold ones. And you think, I'd quite like that. And you bop them on the head. You take the stuff. You laugh off with your friends, leaving them dead in the water. And I don't think that you can say that that's anything other than being a pirate.
If it's on land, isn't it just burglary though?
And there has obviously been some specific pirate seasons. There's been a long rumored kind of Pirates of the Caribbean thing. Season 8 was just specifically pirates. You can do pirate stuff. Season 8 was just specifically pirates. You can do pirate stuff. So if you want to quibble with that sort of stuff, there's pirates in it. And there's often a jungle. There's often water. There's always boats. There's always that sort of stuff. There's always very nautical stuff in there. But I think if you want to really boil it down to the spirit of piracy, which is taking stuff by force with you and your friends, there's no better game than Fortnite.
Genuinely shocked by that. I mean, I've never actually played Fortnite, so
have you not? It's actually really good.
The impression I've got from it,
it's really good. I suppose, like, where do we draw the line between like piracy and just random like muggings? And
I was gonna say, like, isn't a land pirate just a burglar? Like,
there are two problems. There's that one, and there's also the fact that in addition to all the pirate stuff there's in it, there's 9 million other weird things. It's also a superhero game. It's also a Witcher game, technically, because I think Geralt of Rivia is in it. So there's if that's criteria, there's other quibbles. But I appreciate you going for something interesting.
Yeah, because I thought of all of the boring picks like Sea of Thieves or Monkey Island, or I even considered picking Uncharted 3 because of the Secret Pirate Island stuff. But I really wanted to. The thing that I like with other people's picks on this is when they really nail the feeling of the topic, and I think that when you think of what actually people were doing on a pirate ship, it probably was just going like, "There's people over there. Let's go and kill them," and then that's what they did.
I'm taken in by that bit. So I'm quite surprised.
Well, before you decide he's right, it's a question for you, Jim. Like, how would you define piracy? Because if you accept that, then we could be like, oh, Helldivers 2 is you and your 4 people go on to, like, we're going to go kill and steal the like supplies from these robots.
I mean, I'm not sort of. I feel like as an interpretation of the topic, I think it's clever. But I'm not
clever. Is it right?
I'm not saying that he's definitive. I'm not saying that James's take on piracy is the definitive and only correct one. I just think it's clever. I just think it's pretty good.
I would say that.
Yeah.
But if you think about Helldivers 2 as an example, that's at the behest of I've not played it. It's at the behest of like a military or a corporation or something, or is that something that I've not played it?
Well, you're fighting for democracy, and pirates were, they were freed slaves, right?
Nassau was probably one of the most free societies of the time, really.
Yeah.
Well, ostensibly, it probably was quite oppressive in practice, but like on paper, it was pretty free. So, all right, okay. I want to now hear from. Oh, I'm going to save Connor for last because you've not been on it for a while.
Yeah.
I feel like we all need to brace ourselves for whatever it is you're going to pick because
the people miss me, and you're leaving that until last, right?
Yeah, exactly. And given the state of your Steam library, Connor, this could go a lot of different ways. Mark, I just want to remind you that it can't just be a game that you've nicked. What is your pick for this topic?
Right, so I'm glad we've already broached the kind of what is the definition of piracy thing, because mine hinges on that a bit. It's Lego Pirates of the Caribbean, and basically the idea that I'm going for is that Black Flag in and of itself was great when it was being the Pirates of the Caribbean game that Disney hadn't made to that point, the kind of live action one that they hadn't made, and was just kind of, there was assassin bit in it, but we were all here for, as you say, the boarding of the ships and the taking of the goods and the swashbuckling and all of that goodness. And basically what Lego Pirates of the Caribbean is an actual Pirates of the Caribbean game, but also one that actually sort of sums up what I think the definition of piracy is, which is the fact that, like cowboys, they're a myth that sound a lot better to be than they actually are. The reality is quite depressing. I watched a documentary about pirates on Netflix, and a large portion of it was just the guy that was Blackbeard had an STD of some kind and had to regularly go and basically get, I think it was phosphorus or something, just injected directly into his penis.
Sick. I mean, that's fantastic, right?
At regular points, and there were just bits in the documentary that were just like him just aggressively girding his camera to show that this was happening. So, because of that, I think that that's not actually the kind of piracy that people want. What they want is the idea of piracy as this kind of fun swashbuckling, you're running around with your mates on a little ship, wearing silly hats, looking through telescopes, fighting the Kraken, all that kind of thing. And that's exactly what Lego Pirates of the Caribbean's got. It's got all of the stuff from 4 of the movies that they did. I think they did another one, but nobody cares about that one. So it's all of the good ones, i.e. the first 3 and the other one. It's all of the good action, all of the important scenes, fighting Jack Sparrow in a water wheel that's randomly just going down towards a beach, visiting Singapore for no other reason than bits of Asia look quite cinematic. And throughout that, it's also got all of the typical Lego game kind of sense of humour. I was replaying a level the other night, and instead of playing Liar's Dice with the tentacle man, Davy Jones, Will Turner just ended up playing Twister with him. That was the joke. Just, playing Twister with a guy with tentacles, and it's not quite fun. So it's got bits like that in it that will genuinely make you laugh, no matter whether you're 5 like I am or an actual adult. The one of these that I've won, I decided to randomly just list characters from it, and that ended quite well. So because it's a Lego game and it's got 9 million characters, I've picked some out. One of them is just one of the King Georges, one of the actual kings of England. We've had like 9 million Georges, so I don't know which one it is, but he's in one of the films, and he's a character in this. There's 2 kinds of cannibal. One's hungry cannibal, one's angry cannibal. Those are the actual character names. I don't know what the difference is. I think one of them might have a blow dart. Maybe that's it.
A blow what?
A blow dart.
All right. Okay.
Yes. What did you think I said?
As you surely know, Jim, because Jack Sparrow escapes from the cannibals and runs down the beach, and he has to escape to the Black Pearl, obviously.
I've only seen the first 2.
You've only seen the first 2?
Yeah.
Oh, the third one was mint.
The second one absolutely fell off for me, but anyway.
Yeah, the first one is cinema, like, genius.
Second one's one of the best. It's literally about just a man's heart in a box.
And that's the selling point.
Matrix Reloaded at the end, though, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
End properly.
Yeah. And then the third one has like an hour-long action scene, which is like goated. They're above like a whirlpool. It's fantastic.
Exactly. Actually, I think that's the second one that you're dissing. I think that's the Maelstrom in the second one.
No, because the Maelstrom ends the trilogy because Davy Jones dies and then Will Turner becomes the captain of the Dutchman.
Oh, I don't need to fucking watch it now.
His son is like, I want to see my dad or whatever.
Yeah. First of all, Jamie should definitely rewatch them. They're on my list of just films that I randomly put on if I can't decide what to watch. The first 3 at least are. I just want to add one more character name that I wrote down, which is there's one called just Tattoo Pirate, and it's literally just one of the guys in Speedos from the bit with Southbank's bathhouse that you do. So it's literally just you can run around as a man in pants that's also a pirate, getting up to hijinks
with tattoos.
I love that.
Josh
It's a
Weston.
very Ron Seal, very Ron Seal name for a guy as well. Okay, I might actually watch the Pirates of the Caribbean films now.
You should.
Well, like I say, the theme tune is a really good one to and the VG 24/7 podcast is a big fan of cats. The Pirates of the Caribbean theme tune is a great one to sing as you dance around with a cat. You pick it up, you go like this,
Yeah.
I think
one of the best.
Mochi would actually assault me if I tried that. So, Lego Pirates of the Caribbean. It's interesting. I like the idea that the Lego people were just like, or Traveler's Tales, is it? I like the idea that they were just like, oh, there's like fucking 4 characters in this movie that have names.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to go through the credits and be like, what about this guy who was in a bathtub? Okay, right, Connor. Everyone's waiting for this, aren't they? Everyone's like, is he gonna pick a real game or is he gonna pick fucking bottom of the barrel, $2.99 on Steam, fucking Titty Pirate 3 or something?
I mean, that's the appeal, right, of my podcasts, right? So, like, it has been a while, and I was hoping that when I came back, it would be I was honestly hoping for like a Donaldson level challenge, because I wanted to come back and really like bash my head against it, but it's been pretty wank. We've got Fortnite, which isn't a pirate game, bar some seasons. It's just like a general live service murder game. Like there are millions of them, right? And then we have, to be fair, Lego Pirates of the Caribbean is by definition a pirate game. You play as pirates and pirate IP, right? But I don't think you actually have the spirit of like pirating in gameplay. And it's just a Lego game with like pirate dressing, right? Like who cares? It's like whatever. My game not only has pirates in it, it has player pirates in it, and it has the act of players robbing other players in ships for their stuff. It is pirate in its soul, if you deem to want to do that. And it is EVE Online.
Yeah.
In EVE Online, 4 years, players have been going into low security space in their vessels, waiting for tradesmen, waiting for average players, people who are mining asteroids to venture in, and then they shoot them to death, and then they rob them at gunpoint. It is sick. It's one of the... EVE Online is one of these games where, like, there are all sorts of stories from it. Playing EVE Online and actually hearing EVE Online, this is a sentiment that's been said forever, are two totally different things. Because EVE Online itself is quite a slow, methodical game. It's perceived as quite boring, but the stories from it are great. And like, the stories of, like, just like there are like pirate federations, like player built sort of like pirate gangs and crews, and they organize raids on ships and other sort of community run sort of entities. Like I think it was a few years ago, the developers did like community spotlights where they sat players down and interviewed them. And there was one guy who was like, yeah, I wanted to be a pirate. So I went and talked to these pirates, and they're like, we want you to like infiltrate a mining group. And he did. And then he fed them information. And then a bunch of the pirates came and ambushed this sort of hauling vessel filled with like expensive minerals, expensive resources. And I just nicked all of it. And that is piracy. That's what it was in the sort of like myth sort of perception of what pirates were. It was, there's a Spanish vessel. It's got tons of gold and salt and stuff on it. We're going to go put like guns to the head. Back then, maybe like a flintlock pistol in Eve. It's like a big laser, which is sick. And we're going to just take it all. We're going to nick it all because they ventured into dark and murky waters. Recently, it gets even better. There's like a factions update to EVE Online because the game still survives and has updates. And you can actually in-game, like this is separate from community stuff, like family stuff. You can align with the pirate factions, which is cool. And by like doing missions and other sorts of things for them, you can raise the corruption in different sectors of space.
That's pretty cool.
Which makes it easier for like piracy stuff and nefarious like goings on to happen. So like it's a game where real people behind the computers are being like, I want to nick stuff from other players. And it's totally allowed in game, and there's a whole culture around it, and it's great. I want to make
the point as well that the stuff that players nick off each other in EVE Online does have actual like real world value.
It has actual real value. Like a lot of the big headlines and sort of news about like these massive ships that are worth tons of money. But like the economy of EVE Online is kind of sort of built upon a foundation of hauling minerals or asteroids and other stuff in these big ships, like cargo ships. You have like the equivalent like space truck drivers in EVE who just like transport stuff. And I think that's sick. I think that is what piracy is all about, really. And it's space piracy, which makes it cooler as well, because everyone knows that space is just sick, right?
I think it's an interesting concept, but at the same time, have you ever actually played the game?
Yeah.
The mechanical aspect of the things that people say happen in EVE Online is very different to the actuality of what goes on.
Yeah, I mean, if there's like a cinematic perception of like these big battles, when there's the realities of playing it, right? Which is a lot of micromanaging and stuff. And that's, I mean, that is a fair criticism. It's not like you're literally playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag and swimming across to another pirate ship and stabbing a guy. But it is still the really arduous process of arranging, planning, plotting, and enacting a robbery of cargo by pirates.
But that's kind of, I think that kind of strikes me more as the kind of heist sort of thing, rather than, I think when you think of high seas piracy, there's an aspect of sort of feral barbarism that's really missing from that.
Yeah.
These guys were just kind of knocking about and were predatory, and they weren't necessarily premeditated. The EVE Online stuff kind of strikes me a bit more of like a train heist that you'd see in Red Dead Redemption or whatever, and I don't think that's quite the same.
That's a form of piracy.
It's not. It's within the
burglarizing a vehicle.
It's not though.
I would say a heist is sort of like the stealing from institutions or perhaps like a bigger entity. Pirates in EVE Online, while gathered up, can plot like bigger things, but a lot of pirates do just lurk in low security space away from the sort of like big governmental, big power, like big juggernaut ships. And they do kind of lurk there and wait for people to venture by. They spot like beacons sent out by ships. They have people watching like relays and stuff. So like there is an element of just like the spontaneous pulling up to someone and taking all their stuff. Yeah. Also, it's worth noting that in these player communities, there are literally pirate codes. They have made a pirate code for themselves. And if you've watched Pirates of the Caribbean, the Pirates Code is a big deal.
You'll know that there's
Isn't the whole point of the Pirates Code in Pirates of the Caribbean that it actually means fucking nothing?
It means a lot.
Like,
the guy said, hang the code, and Jack Sparrow's dad shot him.
They cover that in the first film.
The code is very important. You mustn't parlay and stuff. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
If you say, I give up, hey, don't kill me, just take my stuff, pirates will do that. Because there is a pirate's code.
The big difference between actual piracy and things that could just be heists is the aesthetic. It's that aesthetic of being people on a ship and the whole ethos of it, the swashbuckling and all of that. It's not just about robbing, and I would say that's...
The people are on ships and they are robbing and they are like pulling them to other ships and taking their stuff.
But there's no taverns, actual flintlock pistols, or people wearing silly hats.
And there's also the mechanical aspect of the kind of best game that I think it's an interesting idea, but I think the actual idea of playing EVE Online is just so unappealing compared to the other games that we've picked. That I just don't think it's the best game.
I mean, EVE Online may not be as like, you know, immediately gratifying as the sort of dopamine-filled, like teenage honey traps, right? But as Jim will know, sometimes the slower games are like have their merits to them. I know Jim's a big fan of like these like cross-country driving games. He understands that like sometimes the slow burn is actually rewarding.
Yeah, I would say as well the EVE Online
foundation of simming, right?
There is so much simming in EVE Online. The game is like so much simulating and management and stuff. And when you see it play out in these big bombastic cinematic payoffs, that is your actions and that is a lot of the work paying off. That could be in being a banker in a big space station, or that could be in the fact of being a pirate plotting out your low-sec sort of like skirmish grounds and surprising an unsuspecting player with piracy.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's a distinction that doesn't really make much difference because, you know, the mechanical actions you take while you're interacting with the game, they are still meaningful within the context of the game, right? So even though it might be, the interface might basically be a spreadsheet, that's the infamous joke about EVE Online. Right?
Yeah, it's a spreadsheet game.
It sounds like a space opera, but when you play it, it's basically Microsoft Excel. But like when you're part of that world and you're immersed in it, it doesn't really matter. You know, you're kind of like you just, you know, you don't see the code, right? You just see like, you know, brunette, blonde.
But at the same time, you think of piracy, the real booty was the friends that we made along the way, right?
Yeah.
And to make friends, you have to have fun. And I think the fun's missing.
People
They're all
have
having fun, but they're all like 35, 40-year-old blokes. Like, the boring people have fun through, I suppose, in your perception, boring stuff. Then, you know, there've been book clubs and chess clubs for decades.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that EVE Online is boring to me. I played it and I had a good time with it when I played it a few years back. I don't play it now because I've got too much to do. And it is time extensive. It does take a lot of time. But all good things do, you know?
Yeah.
So
look, all good things are shite, James.
No,
right.
that's what I said.
I know.
That's why I said maybe last year in another podcast.
Right. Okay. I need to pick something now. So, of these three, we've got a really clever pick from James, where it's like basically not a pirate game, but depending on how you define piracy, does have elements of piracy in that you can be a marauding group of pals who pick on people and take their stuff. Love that. By the same note, does RuneScape count as a pirate game?
There are PvP places, like zones in RuneScape where people do go and gank each other and take their stuff.
There's also like a whole pirate area.
There's like
there's a lot of pirate team stuff.
Remember the banana quest, right? You know, the bananas in the barrel. Sick.
And then we've got Lego Pirates of the Caribbean, which is, I think, Connor kind of skewered that actually, Mark, because when Connor pointed out that like Lego Pirates of the Caribbean is a Lego game with sort of pirate accoutrement, right?
In that case, it's just whether you want a Lego game that looks like piracy or an Excel spreadsheet that looks like piracy, and I'm taking the former.
Like, it doesn't just look like piracy, it is piracy in action.
In EVE Online, doesn't matter how you interface with it, as a group of people with your mates, you can go to a low security system and pick on someone and take their stuff by force.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, and that stuff can have real world value. And fundamentally, that doesn't happen in Lego Pirates of the Caribbean because it's just jokes about Twister. Lego Pirates of the Caribbean is like is essentially not even a pirate film. I mean, it's basically an adaptation of a fairground ride that's been rendered in Lego, right? And it's fine. I'm not saying it's a bad game, but like in terms of, I've got to give it to EVE Online, right? Because
you don't though, do you?
You don't have to do anything.
You do. Because it is the only example of a game that has actual fucking piracy, and takes place on ships in the greatest sea of all, which is space.
Sea of stars.
Yeah. So I think Connor's actually nailed it, and I'm surprised that he didn't go for some sort of like. There's no thumbnails with a scantily clad woman with an eye patch.
No, we'll get 200 less views this week. Yeah.
We're never going to get one of those thumbnails again. He's just going to pick boring things from here on out. This is what you've done. Like, you've ruined the podcast. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Next week, next time I'm on, you'll get some sauce from me. I'll go digging for some stuff.
We won't though, because you'll want to win. And I don't blame you.
EVE Online is the best pirate game that isn't Black Flag. I think you know, and the point you made, James, about how like the act of playing EVE Online is different to the act of hearing about EVE Online or describe. I think that's you know, in a bit of a meta sense, I've always thought that like EVE Online is an amazing game to read about. But I'm not sure I would enjoy playing it necessarily. I'd be terrible at it as well. But like,
I think you'd love it, to be honest. I think you would. There's a certain type of Eve player that you would fit quite not neatly in. Transporting like.
What does that mean?
No,
I'm not even
I think you'd be really chilled, like just transporting goods across to different space stations. I think
do
you'd love
people
that.
play it like basically Euro Truck Simulator? Because I'm up for that.
Yeah,
I'm up for that.
yeah.
Like,
It's
no,
essentially
that's what I mean.
people said Starfield was going to be like.
Yeah.
The way you could sort of, you can be a different you can be a caravan person, you can do this, you can do that. When it was just like, but Fallout, but space kind of maybe, but bad.
Yeah.
But I think with EVE Online, now that the ghost has been thoroughly given up, I think the thread that you'd have to pull on with the idea is that it does contain that spirit of piracy, because which Mark pulled on, which I thought was actually a really good idea, that the myth and the legend is a lot better than the actuality. That the practicality of being a pirate was awful.
It was bad, yeah.
It was just a terrible. It was just living on horrid shit with a load of horrid blokes having a terrible time. But the mythology of the golden age of piracy and all of that sort of stuff is this mythologized and romanticized thing. And that is exactly the same with EVE Online. The act of actually playing it is this kind of outdated, slightly miserable thing that's propped up by the sunk cost fallacy, I guess. But then the mythologized element of it with all of the goon army, is it what it's called? And the implosion.
I think that's one of the
is
something
a lot
awful
more interesting
people
than the actual practicalities of playing it, which I do actually think suits the romance of the golden age of piracy.
Sure. I'm proper shocked that none of us picked Sid Meier's Pirates, considering it's in the opening credits of the podcast.
It's a good fucking game, Sid Meier's Pirates.
Exactly.
Obvious, though. It's to this day still
so
an
good.
amazing fucking
I
pirate.
assume that's the game you've got picked out first, Jim.
Well, I have maybe fucked it on that score. But, okay, right, it's time for me to pick one, and everyone's going to absolutely rip this one a new one, but I'm going to do it.
It kind of has like a pirate shanty sort of feel to it in this context, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah,
I was in it like,
you can totally imagine guys like hoisting the mainsail. Is that a thing people do? I don't know.
Jim, yeah.
Just as a quick note, if I can, I googled it while we were listening to that, and Blackbeard's STD was syphilis. That's what he was having treated by.
How did they know that?
What I outlined.
Like, how do they know?
Because it's painful when he does things with the thing down there.
No, but like, I guess it must have been written down somewhere. But like,
They found the stuff that was used to treat it on the wreck of his ship.
Yeah.
They found the thing that I alluded to.
and that they assumed it was just for sticking sulfur into his knot, though.
Well, it's a kind of needle where you can't use it for much else, I think.
Oh my God.
I'm lowering the tone because I'm unhappy. That's what I'm doing. I'm sorry.
We're now talking about Edward teaches penis, everyone. That's the real topic of the podcast. I love how when Connor wins, everyone's raging. When Connor loses, Connor's raging and everyone's okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not actually raging. I think that generally deserved it this time.
It was a good combo. Really good
I'm
debate.
quite magnanimous this time. Usually I think you're wrong. But I'm willing to accept that there are shades of grey in this one.
I just think it's quite funny that when a lot of people, when they come on this podcast, are like, as long as I beat Connor, I don't necessarily want to win, but as long as I beat Connor, you know. But all right, okay. My pick. Oh fuck! Everyone's gonna have a go at me, and I can't change it because I've already said it to Connor in a text. So you've already alluded to it, James.
What's this admitting to collusion? I
No,
think we should
I'm
void this result.
Did you? No, it was because Connor was expressing concerns about like.
I asked him to define piracy.
Yeah. And then Connor was
Right.
like, look, if it's a space pirate, are you going to kick it? I'm like, no, because space pirate's a type of pirate. And then I was like, my pick is Starfield.
You can't be coached on your picks.
You can't ask for
I
help.
wasn't coached with my pick.
Well,
I asked him to
wasn't asking
define
for
the
help.
podcast
He was just
question.
clarifying.
I said,
He was
can
just-
you clarify the podcast question?
Yeah, he
because
was
we've
just
all seen
clarifying.
podcasts where people have come on and said
There's
something. Jim's
no
been like, no,
collusion
that
here.
doesn't fucking count.
Right.
And then
You've
you just get found out.
You've got to take that risk. That's part of the risk. Coming on and having something that will just be laughed off.
Well, look, I'd do anything to win. And now we've set a new
Risk is
standard
part
in
of the game if you want to sit in that chair.
I'll be taking this to a higher authority. There'll be an Ori inquiry.
Everyone tells me their
Ari-
pick ahead of time. This is not
They
controversial.
don't,
This-
everyone
not his-
tells
that's
you the
not his-
pick.
that's
They
not
don't
his
ask
pick.
you
Yeah.
what to pick.
I didn't ask
they
him what to
don't-
pick.
excuse me, James. If I pulled up our chat logs, I'm sure I can find instances of you going, "Will this do?" Right, which is the same thing.
I do it every single time.
Right. Okay. But I did let it slip there, but nobody picked up on it. My pick is Starfield.
It's
I'm
just
really
so
sorry.
bad, right? Like, it's just
Right.
bad.
No,
I
look,
think you would. Because essentially the point of this podcast has been that piracy actually sucks and is depressing in reality, and Starfield sums that up perfectly. I think you've done a good job.
The dichotomy between Starfield, our impression of what Starfield might be, in the pre-release, its potential as potentially like the greatest space game of all time, and the actual cold hard reality, which was that like it's not as good as No Man's Sky and it's not as good as Skyrim. It's somehow less than the sum of its parts. Yeah, I get it. It's the most 7 out of 10 fucking game. 6 out of 10 even. 6 out of 10 actually. It was a very 6 out of 10 game, but right. I'm really sorry, but I love Starfield. I've gotten massively into it this year. And again, one of these things that you love despite itself. I understand all of its flaws and I get why people bounce off it massively, but I fucking love it. And I love space shit. I've been watching like For All Mankind and The Expanse as well while I've been playing it, because it's really got me in that frame of mind of kind of like really enjoying all that kind of click clunk of the space stuff. And the reason why I think Starfield makes a good pirate game is not just because there is like a whole kind of pirate faction and quest line that you can do where you can either, I'm not going to spoil it too much just because people haven't played it, but like you can infiltrate the pirate faction, or you can just like, wholeheartedly join them, essentially. But not just that, there's the mechanics of like, because it's a Bethesda game, it's a world that you properly inhabit, right? And you can shoot someone's engines out and then board their ship, and you actually go onto their ship and you see like the filth that they've been living in, and you can and you can shoot them in the head and take their stuff directly from their cargo hold, or you can just blow them out of the sky and grapple their cargo, what remains of it. So like it is a true pirate game in the sense that like you're cutting about with your companions on your ship, and you can threaten people and brutalize them or just kill them and take their stuff. Because you've got that kind of like immersion element, because it's a Bethesda game, you have to like often look at the faces of the people you're stealing from. And I suppose you kind of like, if you do play the game in that way where you've decided to be a villain, you have to do, I guess, what the pirates actually did, which was sort of develop a real thick skin about the morals of this, and decide that because society has ostracized you, it's actually okay for you to take that out on the rest of the world. So yeah, and you could accuse me of reading too much into it, but I think that is the beauty of a Bethesda game, where you can or have to project a lot of kind of meaning onto it, because otherwise it has no fucking meaning at all, because it's bland as fuck.
It's a good argument.
So that's my pick.
It's just a shame that sort of Bethesda for Starfield didn't go all the way of like letting you do that. Because correct me if I'm wrong, if you do crimes as you would as a pirate, and you try and pull into one of the major sort of planets, standing quests and stuff, don't they not let you land unless you like go to jail and take a big XP punishment?
Yeah, it's in that sense it is a crap pirate game, because piracy just absolutely does not.
All of the reasons you said are great, And I think there is an argument there, but it's just kind of tragic that if you were to roleplay a pirate and have this philosophy that, well, there's no ethical sort of worries of what I do, which, again, not spoiling it, but that actually has a role in Starfield if you want to go all the way with it. The game ultimately in its mechanics is like, you could be a pirate, but good luck ever leveling up ever again. Which kind of sucks, right? Like
it also works on the level that a lot of real life pirates basically ended their lives having pissed too many people off and ended up just dying on like a remote island somewhere. So dying on a remote planet because you can't enter any of the actual systems is a fitting end.
Yeah. All right. Well, my pick wins then.
You already picked, but like it shoots itself in the foot, kind of, which is why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
We always talk about Starfield as being like what I always come back to with Starfield is that the limitation of it story-wise is that with pretty much every single quest, what they say is going to happen, you go to the place and then that thing happens. But when you talk about it as less as the sum of its parts, the parts that doesn't affect and work with are some of the best piratey parts, like the illusion of space within the different systems and the flying about and stuff. And even though it is just essentially a big black room that you're flying about, when you go there, you can fly about that big black room and shoot stuff, and that is very compelling, and the illusion of it is really good. And by that same token, going and getting your shielded hard hulls and all of that sort of stuff to hide your cargo, all of that stuff is very mechanical. You go to the place, you say, can I have a shielded thing that hides my booty, please? The guy goes, yeah, it gives it to you. It does what it says on the tin. I feel like the story elements of Starfield, which are the parts that everybody was disappointed in, that are very cut and dry, straightforward, aren't affected by that weirdness when it comes to the piratey bits. So I think that it's a slightly less bad pick than you perhaps first think is the credit that I'll give you.
All right. I'll give myself a point then.
The great tragedy of Starfield is that it's kind of so close to being the full package, isn't it? It's like really close to being exactly what you want.
It's almost... It's so almost, but not quite.
Which is why I think you should almost, but not quite win this podcast.
I really, really agree. Especially with like so many of the side quests that if somebody said, go and pick up my painting for me. Yeah. And then when you went to pick, like in Oblivion, you went to that painting and it sucked you into an alternate painting dimension. Whoa.
Yeah.
Then it would be great, like Oblivion is. But what happens in Starfield is the dude says, can you go and pick up this painting for me? You go and pick up the painting, you give it back to him, he says thank you, 50 experience.
And then every time you talk to him after that, he's like, I told you never to speak to me.
It's funny because it's not terrible. It's just kind of average whatever, which is kind of, funnily enough, kind of worse.
It's like it's not interesting enough to be terrible, right?
It's like when you play a really bad game, it can be really funny and nass, and you can have some good memories of it, but Starfield's just kind of disappointing.
A really bad game like EVE Online, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This podcast winner, everyone.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening. Please leave us a 5-star review if we deserve it on your podcast platform of choice. Like and subscribe on YouTube, etc. And if you want to hear more about Starfield, go to VG247.com because Mark writes about it like every 5 minutes.
Yeah. And like this podcast, a lot of that coverage is me pretending that I'm still playing it and enjoying it, which I'm not, mainly because I've got to do other things, but I could be.
Don't say that. Oh my God.
I will be when it gets actual mods.
Well, thanks very much for that, everyone. Bye.
Bye.